Hello everyone, it's Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat. I am back with another Christmas in July project. I end up making 3 cards, but basically I had no plan when I started apart from use some of this pattern paper. I'd gone through my stash, pulled out these 2 pieces, which are both double-sided. I don't really like the reverse of the stripy one, so I don't end up using that at all. And I cut it into 5x5 squares. Obviously that gave me some strips as well. And then I decided that what I would do was add, die cut some pieces and then create some panels. And I decided for this session, let's just concentrate on 3. It took me just over an hour, I think about an hour and 15 minutes to create 3 cards. So I think that was a sensible option, since I was actually quite tired when I was doing this because it was one evening after work. Now, having got the idea that I've got these 3 panels, card blanks card fronts kind of made up, I then had to decide how to decorate them. So for this first one, I took these tree dies. I've had these for donkey's years. No idea where I bought them. I've had them for ages, don't use them that often, but I decided to grab some dies I don't use often in order to make up these cards. So I die cut the trees 3 times. They're all stacked on a piece of folded over cardstock because it's really thin cardstock, and I do this just to strengthen them. And then I did the same with this oval, and all I've been doing for this is just grabbing scraps out of my scrap box, not cutting into new card sheets at this point. I just want to just use up what I've got. I add some ink to my little oval to create kind of a sky, which was like blues and purplies. I don't know what that word is, purples, greys. And then I've added a little bit of green just lightly to some of the trees. Again, not doing a full covering of the ink, it's just to add a hint of colour. I decided that I didn't want to matte these pieces, so I decided to just ink up the edge, and then that would create enough of a boundary between the 2 pattern papers. And then I'm just starting to glue things down. I decided I wanted this oval just slightly raised, so again took some scraps, this time of black, a couple of them, die cut a smaller oval to sit underneath, and that would do nicely. And now I'm deciding I wanted to use some glitter glue. Now I hadn't got any clear glitter glue. I'd got this silver one, and it's a bit gunky, to be honest. It's probably past its best. So I'm faffing around with it. I keep wiping it off, keep taking stuff out, and so it's just a very light covering of silver glitter. You can't really see it very well on the video, but it just gives it a light element of sparkle to the final card. Now again, grabbing a die that I don't use very often. This is this Merry one from Lawn Fawn, and decided that I was going to cut that out. I found this scrap of red in the scraps pouch, and that was perfect. And I just literally die cut it the once because there was only one piece of the red. If there'd have been more, I'd have die cut it 2 times, and then stuck that on the card front and sort of decided that was the front done. I'm struggling because of course it's wet glitter glue to do very much now to the front anyway, because I don't want to ruin that. I just add a little strip of the pattern paper in, inked up the edge around that to go in the middle. That was card 1. Now, card 2, when I die cut those circles, that I'd obviously created a frame panel, and I decided I wanted to just trim that down a little bit so that it was more central to the panel, and that then creates my background. So again, I'm digging out dies I've not used very often. This is this Moose one, who I absolutely love, die cut from Tim Holtz. They're just a bit fiddly for me. So I don't love using them. I absolutely love the finished effect. But for this particular card, I just used the tree and the sort of the leafy elements for this. You can see there I'm already sort of starting to die cut or put to one side the moose elements, but he's going to be for my 3rd card. So spoiler alert. So yeah, I've die cut the trees 3 times, and now I'm cutting the leafy snowy bits out 3 times. Now, this is where it gets just really fiddly. They're tiny, tiny little pieces, and I'm just not a fiddly person. But I persevere and eventually get there with some of the leaves on these sort of trees have now some snow attached to them. I'm not really concerned about how accurate it looks. They're kind of quite sketchy looking trees as they are. And I think with hindsight, I probably should have just shortened one of them as well, because I ended up stacking the three together, and it could have done with a little bit of a difference in height for one of them to have been a bit shorter. But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So you can see here I am literally just fiddling and fiddling and fiddling, and eventually I get my second one down, and now onto my third. So I don't end up using all of those snowy pieces. I think there is only one that ends up being left off, but I was trying my hardest not to make them all identical, because you know what? Trees are not identical. They're all unique. So yeah, so I'm trying to do that, and this piece here I just ended up sticking over at the bottom. And you can see here I'm starting to pile up. Mr. Moose is going to get die cut from that leftover craft cardstock, but not at this point. At this point I decide, right, let's edge the panel, and then I'm going to use that merry die cut again, but this time die cut it from scrap of white. And then I was going to go and stick it straight on, and I thought, no, I want it stacked up. So at this point, I take that really tiny scrap. It's not quite big enough to fit the whole word on, but it's enough to do as a layer underneath, just to give it that little bit of extra strength as a die cut. I mean, it's when you're doing with these fiddly little pieces and you're gluing them, your hands end up really sticky as well, I'm just saying. Now this one I decided I did want to add Christmas to it. So I took this Christmas to Remember stamp set and I just stamped the Christmas. I used an archival ink there because that's the one that was out on the desk. Again, hindsight, a wonderful thing. Probably should have used my VersaFine my Memento, because my archival's not particularly well inked. I did ink the edges, and again took some scraps, put them underneath just to give it a little bit more dimension underneath the word Christmas. This panel I decided I really wanted to be attached to a craft blank base, so cut myself, I think it's about 5.5, that panel. Now my craft cardstock does not use tape very well, doesn't use stick to tape very well, so I added tape and some inking. And here I come again with this glitter glue, and this time I decided to just squeeze it out onto a piece of paper and kind of paint with it. That worked much easier than faffing around like I'd done on the first one. Right, card number 3. This time my moose. So this time, because the craft, it isn't thin cardstock, but it's not very thick either. It's not as thin as the white. I did decide to double it up, and it just gives Mr. Moose a nice strong base. So I die cut him and his antlers out, and then I'm adding a little bit of vintage photo to the body and face of the moose, and just the very tips of his antlers. And then I'm also adding that little bit of early espresso that you saw me just going direct to the ink pad to the thing, just to add a little bit of extra depth to his legs and his back and his nose. And now it's all the fiddly little bits. So Mr. Moose is wearing a little collar with a bell, and he's got like I don't know what they're called. The kind of strapping that goes around the face. Is it a bridle? Is that what it's called? You can tell I'm not a horsey person or a mouse. Well, I love moose. I'm not someone who knows how to ride a moose. I don't even know if you can ride a moose. Don't think you should. But yeah, so all these little fiddly bits that I've cut out of either the dark brown or the white, and then I'm adding a little bit of gold Wink of Stella to the bell. And I do end up adding a little bit of gold Wink of Stella to the little buckles on his. Well, we're going to come up with the name bridle, whether it's the right one or not. But yeah, these are just so fiddly, but I get there eventually. I am quite happy with the final effect. It's one of those things that probably I should die cut him lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of times in one big session, and have a good old gluing session, and just have little moose ready to go on my cards. So you can see there I've also die cut out one of those circles. I've die cut another circle out of it because I just wanted a frame to that circle element, and I'd used the largest die, so I needed to cut it into a smaller die in order to then add the craft frame. I did ink up the frame again, just so that it was again in keeping. Here we go, adding that gold onto the buckles, studs. Words are failing me now. And once again, going in with that Merry die from Lawn Fawn. Die cut it twice. This time it's a really thick die cut, because that's already stacked, that craft cardstock, and so now it's 4 layers thick, so it's a really thick piece. I do add a tiny little bit of ink to it, but you can't really tell, and at this point I think, oh, it's sort of faded in a bit. So I decide that it doesn't matter that it's faded in a bit, but I do want it to look a little bit different, so I put on a couple of coats of the clear Wink of Stella, and then again I decide it does need a frame of the craft cardstock, so just 1 layer of 5.5 by 5.5, but this time I really ink up the edges to darken it. Again, just keeps it in, so it's very similar and less flat looking, but it's similar to the moose then. And that is my card front done. So I think that's all 3 cards. I do later go and add a strip of paper on the inside of the 2 that I didn't do on camera, but you can see now the finished results. So I'm really pleased because I've used up some pattern paper. I'm really pleased because I've used some dies that I hadn't used in ages. I love that Merry scripty die from Lawn Fawn. I think it's really cute. My favourite is going to be the moose card, just because I love moose, and it was nice to actually do the fiddling and get on with it, you know, and just make myself do it. It was nice to actually just finally get a result. So I do love my little moose. With hindsight, would have put a white Merry on rather than the craft, but you know, as I've said earlier in this video, hindsight is a wonderful thing. So anyway, I hope you liked what I made here. Please subscribe for future videos. Leave me a comment below as to which was your favourite of the 3. And until next time, goodbye.